Well, the rains are finally here, the weather's looking good, and for a change, even the compact sedans are looking good. Now, the compact sedans are the entry point into the sedan category, and the sub 4 meter variety, well, it's felt a little too entry level with its meager equipment list and a design that looks like a compromise compared to the classic 3-box sedans. But the Ameo and the Aspire seem to have brought along a change, because in 2017, for this particular category, the keyword seems to be premium. And representing that change are 3 cars: the Tata Tigor, the updated Xcent, and the all-new Dzire. If there was a beauty pageant for compact sedans, the Tigor would certainly win it. While most car makers are struggling to squeeze a 3-box sedan into the sub 4 meter space, Tata has not only mastered it, but also managed to make it look appealing. The compact 4-door coupe stance works wonders for this car. The smoked headlamps, the forward-tipping nose, subtle chrome accents, and the smartly shaped taillights with a receding roofline all give it a distinction in this segment. Tata should have given the more sporty-looking wheels of the Tigor Petrol to the diesel variant as well, for these look a bit too sober in comparison. The package looks premium nevertheless, and while design is a personal preference, I think this is the best-looking car that Tata has produced in the recent times. The look and the feel inside the cabin is equally good, and the darker shades used in here go with the sporty exteriors. All the touch points feel good, but some plastics around the lower part of the dash, center console and the door need improvement. I believe Tata's motoring teams is full of audiophiles too, for the audio unit gets the top drawer equipment for its class. It is easily the best sounding system of the lot. The infotainment system gets its own suite of apps, but the more mainstream technologies like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto would have made more sense. The AC controls aren't very intuitive, but you do get a climate control system. While the cabin lacks enough storage for water bottles and knickknacks, the Tigor has the largest boot of the category. While the loading lip is a tad high, the opening is wide and devoid of any gooseneck hinges, making it the best boot of the lot. Well, the Tigor is not really the most spacious car that you can buy in the compact sedan category. Even the doors are quite small. You know it's based on a hatchback. Of course, the doors are longer or wider than what you have in the Tiago, but compared to the rest of the cars that you have here, ingress and egress isn't as comfortable. Even the seating, the seat height, it's set in such a way that I'm sitting in a knees up position. There is a decent amount of knee room. I like the foot space, but I can't really slide my feet under the seat all that much. I don't really get a good under thigh support. I am sitting with a knees up position. What's worse is the angle of the backrest. So this entire seating position is not really very comfortable. I drove in the back of this car for almost 200 kilometers and I started getting a backache, just the way I did with the front seats as well. What I also don't like is these headrests. Now they will obviously protect you in case of an accident, because they will prevent a whiplash from happening. They are tall, but again, the way they jut forward, they have a very weird angle of seating here, which is what I don't like. Overall, despite all the dark interiors, it doesn't feel very claustrophobic in here. However, it's okay at my height of 5 feet 8. For a taller person, it may not be all that good, because the sloping roofline will certainly eat into your headspace. Even the windows don't feel as large and as wide thanks to that sloping roofline again. So it's not as roomy as the other 2 cars, but then it's, I think, something that is ideal for a nuclear family more than 4 adults and a kid. Not that they can't fit in, but nuclear family is the best way to enjoy this car. The front seats aren't the best in the business either. Height adjustment for the driver is only available on the top trim, and even at its lowest setting, you feel like you're sitting on a bar stool. The steering wheel feels oddly angled too, and depending on your height, it could often obstruct into the view of the clocks. While all the controls fall easily at hand, driving ergonomics could have been better. The tall seating does give you a better view of the road though. As I mentioned in the first impressions of the Tigor, this car begs for a larger diesel motor. It completely gets dwarfed by the new 1.2 litre unit in the Xcent or the aging oiler in the Dzire. This car is of course in a lower price bracket, but then this engine just feels inadequate for its sedan intentions. The engine, it feels quite noisy and quite unrefined for the stylish bodywork that it resides in. But what is worth appreciating is the quality of the gear shifts. In fact, it is one of the best that I've ever experienced in an entry-level Tata. Furthermore, it is complemented by a light clutch and a light steering wheel, which makes it quite a breeze to drive in the city environment. What I also like is the presence of a dead pedal in the foot tunnel. That's a convenient feature to have when the situation allows you to cruise. That said, the Tigor isn't really an effortless cruiser. It takes ages to overtake at highway speeds, and if you're running a full house with luggage, the engine does feel out of breath. The only place where it feels at home is when you're driving around in the urban environment. Even the suspension setup is tuned more towards the urban use. Go over ruts or joints and the suspension, the steering rack, everything starts making noises. It doesn't feel like it's tightly put together. But drive around at city speeds and the bump absorption or the ride quality is quite supple. On the highway or around twisties, the dynamics feel a little unnerving. There is a fair bit of vertical movement. The car feels quite floaty at highway speeds. The grip from the tires, it's quite decent despite their skinny nature. But with the kind of body roll that this car has, you don't really want to push it around the bends. You don't want to push their limits. Braking though is quite good too. In a nutshell then, I would recommend the Tata Tigor as a very nice and convenient city car if that is what you're looking for from your compact sedan. If highway use is quite frequent for you, in that case it's not really something I would recommend thanks to that sluggish engine and those unnerving dynamics. But in the city, it feels very convenient, driving around in tight spots, maneuvering the car in tight parking spaces. There's no problem at all. As a city car, it ticks all the right boxes. The Hyundai Xcent was given a facelift earlier this year, helping it fall in line with the design theme seen on the larger Hyundai sedans. While the face is still similar to the outgoing car, save for the LED DRLs and the large new cascading grille, it's the tail that gets most of the new design theme, with its long horizontal wraparound tail lights that replace the chunky units on the older model. Their detailing establishes the familiar connection, while a revised rear bumper completes the update. Overall, the new Xcent is a nicer looking car now. The cabin has impressive fit and finish as before, but now benefits from a new touchscreen infotainment system which lets you choose the Hindi language for its slick interface, or simply lets you switch to the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto interfaces. Audio quality is pretty good too, and you will also get satellite navigation. With its dashboard-mounted gear shifter, there is a decent storage space in the tunnel console, and it's complemented by a cooled glove box and 1-liter bottle holders in every door. Now, despite all the diminutive dimensions of this car, the kind of space that it offers, it's a big revelation. Look at the kind of space that I have, it's quite good. Foot space is also quite good, under-thigh support, quite nice. I like the roof, it remains flat almost till the end, and that is what gives you a decent headroom, unlike the Tigor. Windows, again, nice and large. You do not get that claustrophobic feeling in here. You also get a center armrest, and I like the fact that they have this little buckle to pull it out, unlike in the Dzire where you have to sort of insert your hand and pull this down. You get 2 cup holders, you get a rear AC vent, you have your own 12-volt socket, so even on long distance journeys, everyone in this car is going to be happy. Speaking of long distance journeys, the angle of the backrest is quite good. Even the contouring of the seat, it's nice and comfortable. The cushioning isn't too soft, isn't too firm. Again, good for long distance journeys. As far as space goes, good enough for 2 adults and a kid. The front seats get integrated headrests and are accommodating. Finding an ergonomic driving position is easy, but knee room could feel cramped for taller drivers. For shorter drivers, the dashboard could turn out to be a tad too high and deep. The short overhangs at the front and the back, however, mean that getting a judgment of all the 4 corners of this car isn't difficult. The Hyundai Xcent continues to be a surprising little package. Its 1.2-liter motor effortlessly cruises on the highway, and the car feels stable even at highway speeds despite what its diminutive size and skinny tires might suggest. Furthermore, it also has quite a healthy roll-on acceleration, so pulling overtakes in the city or on the highway is not a big task. It has a strong low-end and mid-range pull, so you don't really find yourself shifting gears very often. While this engine was the least fuel efficient in the city, it managed to deliver the best highway economy of this test, highlighting its cruising capabilities again. It's also quite refined. In fact, I would call it the benchmark for this class when it comes to engine refinement. So much so that the results are evident in how the new Dzire has turned out. For a Hyundai product, the NVH levels of the Xcent are a tad high though, with road noise breaking into the cabin at as low as 80 km an hour. Wind noise is evident past the 100 km an hour mark. Now, the capacity of the Xcent's U2 diesel motor has been upped from 1.1 litre to 1.2 litre, and that is a move that was made in response to Maruti's 1.3 litre engine, something that the dealers were having a hard time contending as far as on-paper figures were concerned. Now, in the real world, has it come close? Well, it does come close to the performance figures of the 1.3 litre motor in the Dzire, but it doesn't really trump it. But that said, this engine is quite refined, and unlike the Tigor, it doesn't feel inadequate for the purpose of this car, for everything that this car has set out to do. So whether you are commuting in the city or if you are into long distance driving out on the highway, the engine feels at home. It doesn't feel inadequate, and that is one of the reasons why this car has become so popular even in the cab segment. The city and highway manners of the engine are complemented by a well-tuned suspension setup. The ride is supple and the car feels stable at speed. Though it isn't a car for driving enthusiasts, it is predictable around bends. The steering precision has improved too, but it could do with better feedback. The braking is quite decent compared to most new Hyundais, and so is the feedback from the tires. In a nutshell, the Xcent is a very practical car and something that is easy to live with on an average Indian driving cycle. Moving on to the new kid on the block, the Maruti Suzuki Dzire. One glance and you know it's transformed into a stylish car now that is a big departure from its lineage. Though still a sub-4 meter sedan, the Dzire now comes across as a more balanced design that is not only elegant but also upmarket in its appeal. Smartly shaped headlights with LED headlamps and DRLs, equally smart looking tail lights, a classic 3-box shape, the 16-spoke alloy wheels and the curvaceous bodywork come together to make it quite a handsome looking car. That is surprising for this segment, but also shows positive signs on how this category is evolving. There is a tasteful use of chrome that makes the bold new grille more prominent, while a chunky chrome bar on the tailgate helps establish the visual width of the Dzire. In fact, it is the widest car in this test, and that is evident the moment you step inside the cabin. The look and feel is easily the best in class now, and the black and beige color combination works well for this car. The forewood is tastefully done too, but the flat-bottom steering wheel, that is a bit too sporty for the Desire's form and positioning. The touchscreen infotainment system helps reduce the switchgear clutter on the top spec trims, and that adds to the perceived premium quality of this cabin. The controls are ergonomic and the instrumentation is easy to read. Getting into a comfortable driving position is easy despite the lack of reach adjustment for the steering wheel. Knee room at the front is quite good and better than the Xcent or the Tigor. The Dzire is clearly the most roomiest car of this lot. Look at the amount of knee room I have. When was the last time you saw that in a compact sedan segment car? Even the foot space is quite good. Under thigh support, again quite good. I like the angle of the backrest. I like the contouring. I've been driving this car around for almost 200-300 kilometers now. Did a lot of backseat driving as well. And let me tell you, this is a very comfortable place to be in. So if long distances are your thing, you will enjoy this car. Headroom again quite good. You don't get that claustrophobic feeling in here. Everything feels nice and airy with all the bright upholstery that has been used in the cabin. Like I pointed out in the first drive review as well, I have my own AC vent. I have my own 12-volt socket, so that's an additional advantage. The tunnel console, it does extend quite further back. It doesn't really intrude into the rear room, but then this hump right here is more than what you have in the Xcent, and that sort of reduces space right here in the middle. It is still a car for 2 adults and a kid. Again, you don't get a headrest for the middle occupant. So again, strictly for a kid, not for 3 adults. There are plenty of storage spaces in the Dzire, but unlike the previous model or most of the competition now, there is no way to cool a bottle of water anymore, and that's a bit of a downer. The driving position of the Dzire is quite good. You don't sit as low as you do in the Xcent. You don't sit too tall like you would in the Tigor. Getting the right driving position is quite easy. The adjustability of the steering wheel, it should have had telescopic adjustment as well. It should have been adjustable for each, which it isn't, and that's sorely missed. But then, despite that, getting the right driving position isn't too difficult for most people of the average Indian sizes. That said, the visibility of the car all around, getting a judgment of all the four corners of the car is quite easy too. So in all likelihood, if this is going to be your first sedan, you shouldn't be too worried. Of all the three cars tested here, the Dzire feels the most convenient to drive in the city too, with a light clutch and a well-weighted steering wheel that also feels good to hold. As I mentioned in the first drive review and on multiple occasions, the biggest concern people have with the Dzire now is not the space because it's improved, it's not the looks because they have improved, it's not the features because that's improved too, but the engines. Maruti just keeps using the old engines. That is a big grudge. But like I mentioned in the first drive review of this car, the engines do feel adequate. It's been able to go almost a second faster than the Xcent. Like I told you, the Xcent's engine was upgraded to match the performance of this car, but now with the new lighter chassis, it's again become a lot more eager. The engine now feels completely different. I also said that the results of the refinement of the Xcent's U2 motor are evident in the new Dzire and how it's turned out. And that is something that you will understand once you drive the car. It is an older engine. It is not as refined as the new U2 motor. It is not refined as some of the other motors from the competition. But the way it has been utilized in this new platform, in this new chassis, the way the noise, the vibrations, the harshness levels have been eradicated, this car just feels like a new age car now. It feels like it has a new age drivetrain altogether. That is how refined it's become. The new half-tech platform has really worked wonders for this car, and the weight loss gives it a newfound eagerness. This is of course a family car and may not be bought by enthusiasts, but it certainly shows a lot of promise for the upcoming Swift hatchback. The weight loss has also had a big impact on the fuel economy figures. In our road test, with the AC running in the Mumbai heat, we have been able to get over 19 kilometers to a litre in the city and over 25 kilometers to a litre on the highway, which are phenomenal figures now for a car of this class. We also went ahead and made sure that we fill this car up completely with people. We also have a full house of luggage. In fact, we did that for all the three cars, and the fuel economy figures were quite impressive. The diesel engine can be had with either a manual transmission or an automated manual. Both the gearboxes are pretty identical in their performance, and the one that we use for filming this video is the AMT. The sole reason being it is my choice for the Dzire for the convenience and the surprisingly good performance that it offers. It is quick to downshift and can even drop 2 gears in an instant if the situation demands it, making for quick overtakes. Engine braking is quite good too. Speaking of outright braking, however, the Dzire wasn't as impressive as its lightweight would otherwise suggest. I told you I'm not a big fan of the Bridgestone Ecopia tyres, and the braking test proves that. The braking distance was significantly longer than both the Xcent as well as the Tigor, and also longer than some of the other cars from the competition based on the previous test results that we've had. The tyres have adequate grip around corners but tend to squeal quite a bit. Their claim to fame is the low rolling resistance, long life and an economical price tag. The ride quality of the Dzire was the best of this test, and the suspension noise is on par with the Xcent. But safety tech is an important factor where these cars set each other apart. Take a look at how they compare. Since we are at it, let's also take a recap on how the three cars compare on features and feature comforts before we sum it all up. Well, the Ford Aspire and the Volkswagen Amio, both of them have brought a change to the segment, but then again, These two cars are struggling to get the numbers, and they're trying to fill up into every possible sub-segment like taxi, private ownership, and trying to get those numbers. Now, Tata, Hyundai and Maruti, on the other hand, they have a new two-pronged approach to tackle this situation. They have the Zest, the pre-facelift Xcent and the outgoing Dzire as their answer to the booming taxi segment, and that sort of helps them segregate these three cars as the more premium or the more exclusive vehicles for the private ownership. The Tigor, on the other hand, it has a very good price tag and the tempting styling that will increase footfall into the showrooms. But again, it does feel like an entry-level car. The way it's put together and that drivetrain, it really lets it down and sort of restricts its purpose. The Xcent, on the other hand, it is the ideal compact sedan, getting the perfect balance between price, utility and overall packaging. But it has a design that doesn't really stand out, and that is a big surprise coming from a Hyundai. But then again, design is a personal preference. But what lets it down in my books is the safety tech, which is not available as standard across the range. And that is where the Dzire comes in and literally takes the game away from the competition. All the basic safety tech is available standard across the range. It also sets new benchmarks in packaging, in space and in refinement. And it has a variant at every price point to fit different pocket sizes. And speaking of pricing, its top-end variants are a little too far-stretched. They do sound pricey, but then the kind of features that they offer more value than most of the competition does. And so, all things considered, I think the Dzire is the compact sedan to buy in 2017.